Hello. Today I'm going to be reviewing Belzhar by Meg Wolitzer. Um, this is a brilliant book about it's all about loss and acceptance and self-acceptance as well. Um, it follows the main character, Jamaica, whose nickname is Jam, and she gets sent to this kind of rehabilitation slash boarding school for fragile teens. Um, Called the Wooden Barn after her boyfriend dies. I'll get to that later. Um, yeah, and she goes to this school, and it's kind of like a last resort. Like her parents and everybody else have tried everything else, and nothing has really worked out. So this boarding school is kind of like the last resort to help her get herself fixed. Um, and while she's at this boarding school, her and I think it's four other people are picked for this extra class called Special Topics in English. And they have no idea why they're picked, and it was very random. You know, they weren't told they were picked. It was on their timetable. Um, and so they go along to this class, and the teacher, Mrs. Quinnell, tells them that in the class they will be studying Sylvia Plath, and in particular her book The Belzhar, which deals with a woman. I think Sylvia Plath wrote it about herself. It deals with a woman who's in the middle of everything, and it seems like her life is getting much better. And then in the book, she commits suicide, I believe, and Sylvia Plath commits suicide in real life. Um, yeah, so it's kind of like she picks the book, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, because it's kind of similar to their stories, um, and she hopes that it will help them get through whatever they're living with. Um, and yeah, so they study Sylvia Plath, and Mrs. Quinnell gives them each a red leather-bound notebook to write in, and she tells them to fill up the whole book with everything that you're thinking about, you know, while you're reading Sylvia Plath, or whether you just have thoughts or flashbacks to when things went wrong, you know, to just write them down. Sorry, I'm playing with my hair quite a lot. It's kind of annoying me. Yeah. So they get these red notebooks and they start writing in them. But when they start writing in the notebooks, they get transported to this other alternate version of the circumstances that led them to go into the wooden barn. Um, there's one person, I'm not going to reveal too much, but there's one person who um, ended up at the wooden barn because their mum was a drunk and they ended up paralysed. Um, there's another person in the book who his family owns a farm and they have a big barn with loads of goats, and he's messing around with his friend and smoking weed in the barn, and his friend flicks the joint and sets the barn on fire and kills all the goats. And yeah, they're very interesting circumstances that led them to being sent to the wooden barn. Um, and yeah, so they start to, by writing in these journals, they start to go to this other place. And they all decide to get together because, you know, they all start speaking to each other about, like, oh, did you get any visions the other night when you wrote in your journal? And they all discover that they have. So they all set up this meeting every Sunday night in an empty, abandoned classroom at 10 p.m. And they all talk about their experiences when they write in the books. And through these sessions, we get to see and hear the stories of what happened to the people who were in the special topics in English class. And it's very interesting. There are a lot of really cool stories. I say cool, they're very morbid and disturbing, but they are cool. Like, the things that were traumatic and the things that caused them, um, the things that caused them trauma and distress to get them sent to this wooden barn place. You know, they're very disturbing circumstances, but they make the story so much more interesting to read. Um, yeah, and basically throughout the book, everybody reveals what happened to them, but the main character Jam um, doesn't. She doesn't reveal what's happened to her. Um, and they figure out that every time they write in the journal and come back to the real world, that they look in their notebooks and exactly 5 pages have been filled in with writing, and they figure that according to the number of pages in the notebook and the amount of days to the end of the school year, they can write up to 5 entries or something. There's like a few more. They know exactly how many times they can visit Belzhar, because at the end of the year they have to give their notebooks in to the teacher, Mrs. Quinnell, who says she's not going to look at them. They're just going to be stored away, and yeah, so they only have a limited amount of times to go to this place called Belzhar, to reimagine what happened. But when they go to their alternate realities, in the circumstances that led up to them being sent to the wooden barn, the circumstances are different. Like there's nothing wrong, kind of like the girl whose mum crashed into a wall because she was driving when she was drunk. In the version of Belzhar, and then in the journal when she writes in it, and she gets transported to this world, like her mum doesn't crash the car. They're kind of all just in the car singing along. Her mum isn't drunk, and then like the light starts to fade, and she comes back to the real world. But they figure out that on the last entry into the journal, they will relive exactly what happened again. So the girl who ended up paralysed because her mum was drunk when she was driving, the last time she goes to Belzhar at the end of the year, she actually sees and feels everything from the crash. Like she sees the crash happen, she feels her legs being pushed, and she knows she's paralysed, and they have to relive what happened to them. And through them reliving what happened to them, we get to see what happened with Jam and with her boyfriend who supposedly died, called Reeve Maxfield. And that's all I'm going to reveal, because I say he died. He doesn't die in the way you think he does, but it is a good twist, and it's all about them accepting who they are and what happened to them. And there's also love thrown into here, but it's not cheesy. It's actually quite nice to read. And there's a lot of magical realism, like these things are happening to them, but in an alternate reality. So there's magical realism in it as well, which I really found quite thrilling. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about this book. You'll have to read it for yourself, but it is very good. I would give this book a 5 out of 5 stars. And it actually pulled me out of a reading slump, so that's good. And I finished this like an hour ago, and I'm currently 60 pages into a new book, so it definitely did pull me out of a reading slump. So yeah, 5 out of 5 stars. I would recommend it to absolutely anyone. It's really good. It's quite short. It's like 264 pages, so not long at all. And it's just a brilliant book, and it is absolutely beautiful as well. I just have to say that. Absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, so that is my review of Belzhar by Meg Wolitzer. I did a review on toastpop.com. I will link that review in the description below, so you can go and check it out. It might be a little bit more in depth than this, and there may be some spoilers. But yeah, if you would like to, you can go check that out. Leave the link in the description below, and I will see you again soon. So, yes, if you like this video, please give it a like. And if you wish, you may subscribe. And I will see you again soon. Goodbye.